Yeah, of course. So basically the question is like, how do I know a drug works, right?
Yeah.
It's a basic question, but like honestly, it's a lot harder than it sounds. So the way they used to do it back in the day is maybe they would just give a bunch of people right a drug and like kind of see what happens or whatever, or you go by reputation, right? Like it's like, well, I gave it to my cousin and my cousin whatever. Okay, so at some point, they had a lot of contradictory findings, right? And we're like, all right, what is really going on? So I don't know when this started happening, randomization as a thing, probably like early 20th century. I don't know if it goes further back from there, but that became a paradigm that became ever more refined until we got to what is called a randomized clinical trial, or maybe is it randomized control trial, maybe something like
I
that.
think it's control
Um,
trial.
but basically, the idea is that you take two groups of people, right, and you randomly allocate them to groups.
Yeah.
Canonically, a placebo group and a treatment group. You can do more complicated things, but that's kind of your basic setup. And the idea is that let's say that your drug works better in tall people than short people, whatever. You might not even know what that pattern is, but because you've randomized people, you're kind of bound to get some level of balance between like tall people and short people in both groups. So that's not unless you've called it out, that's not going to be what shows the one group to be a lot more sort of affected than the other or something like that. So basically it handles confounders, both the ones that you know and ones that you don't know. So that's why that's the story, at least around why RCTs are sort of the gold standard in medicine.
Yeah.
The problem with RCTs, however, is that they have great internal validity, as they call it, right? Like within the walls of the randomized trial, like what you learn is going to be, unless you botch it, which you totally could, but like for the exact thing you test and the exact thing you try and the exact point in time, population, a bunch of things that are like intrinsic to the time and place you do your experiment and the various criteria you used, what you learn is going to be very likely to be true, right?
Yeah.
However, the problem that RCTs have is what they call external validity, right? Which is like, okay, well, you went to, let's say, Brazil, right? And you did a trial on ivermectin, and you found a result. Is that result going to be true for the rest of the world for all time? Right. Well, it turns out that Brazil at that time was undergoing, a huge spike of the gamma variant, which actually doesn't exist anywhere else. And also, because of that spike, everybody was taking ivermectin on the side. So now, right, like sales have gone through the roof like 20 times over. And you could get it, by the way, in a pharmacy, right? Here in the US or like other countries, you have to get a prescription. It's kind of hard to get. But there, because they have the parasite problem that it was approved for. It's a very common drug. It's got low side effects, so you're going to get people just going to the pharmacy, right? So you try to do a trial. Now put yourself in the mind of a patient. You got COVID, right? And it's beating you up pretty badly. You're also a high risk patient, which is what that trial was optimizing for, right? You got COVID, you're a high risk patient. They approach you, you're like, do you want to come to our trial and take ivermectin? You're like, what, the thing I can get at the pharmacy? And they're like, yeah, and if you come to our trial, there's like a 50% chance we might give you ivermectin or we might not give you ivermectin. I mean, it only takes half a brain to say like, sure, yeah, give me the special, nice treatment. But, on my way back, I'm just going to go by the pharmacy and get some, right? So, you see this pattern actually in another trial in Argentina. The guy literally said, the very fact that we were talking about doing a trial was pushing people to go to the pharmacy and buy ivermectin. And you can even see it in Google Trends.
Wow.
Like,
I never thought of that one. Like, you're actually, by talking about the trial itself, you're inducing the people in the trial to break the protocol of the trial, right? Because they want what the hypothetical solution is.
Another trial in Colombia actually lied to people by saying, we're going to give you this drug called D11AX22, which is actually the molecular description of ivermectin. But then if they were taking ivermectin, they wouldn't know to like not take it. Maybe they told you, hey, don't take ivermectin while you're taking this drug. But you're like, it's a different drug, whatever, right? Like there's no real easy way out of these kinds of problems. So you might, again, for the population you've tried it at the time you've tried it, right? You might get something that is true, but like, what does that mean? How do I apply that learning to the real world is a whole other question. And that's where I think people overextend themselves with randomized trials, because the other thing you can do is an observational trial, right? Like, so for instance, again, with ivermectin, just because this is the thing I've looked into the most, they did this trial in Mexico where anybody basically who got a positive test in Mexico City for a period of a few months, they would just give you a kit, right? And the kit had, I think, aspirin, ivermectin, I don't remember what else, but like mostly ivermectin, a bunch of a few other things, but like kind of the big one was ivermectin. And they wrote that trial up, and it looked really good. And then people were like, well, but we don't know who chose to take the drug and who chose not to, and did you follow the patients and whatever? No, but it was like, I don't remember now, like 80,000 people, right? Like that's a lot. Like you start to resolve the external validity problem, because you cover like a whole area for a period of time, lots and lots of people. But they're like, yeah, but like internal validity is a problem. Sure. But anyway, so that's, clinical trials are a mess basically, and we don't really know anything.